Hi there. Okay, here we go. I have attempted a knitting podcast for a long time. Gotten stuck overthinking it. I'm sure that's relatable for some of you. But I'm here to try it out. I think that the knitting community, as I've seen, has been so welcoming and kind for the most part, and I'm just very excited to become a bigger part of it. My name is Torey. I am in my 30s, a woman living in Massachusetts. I have been knitting. I learned how to knit when I was a little girl. My best friend's mom taught me how. And I've been knitting on and off since then, but I really picked it back up and started knitting garments for myself in 2020, like many of us. It was a good way for me to cope and deal with some of my worries about what was happening in the world, and it continues to be my favorite way to unwind and relax at the end of the day. Aside from being a knitter, I am a mom. My 1-year-old is currently attempting to take a nap upstairs, but he doesn't want to today, so he's just hanging out in there playing with his stuffed animals. And I'm also a graduate student in social work. So that is a little bit about me, and I'm just going to dive into a traditional kind of knitting podcast format. Because I've been knitting for a couple years, and I have been, this is my first knitting podcast. I got distracted, I'm sorry. I have some garments that I have made that I will probably wear, and I can show off as needed. So this is what I'm wearing today is my Ingrid Sweater by Petiteknit. I knit it in a size medium. I knit it last year, I think in the early part of the year, I believe. Time has shifted, I'm sure, for many of us since the pandemic, and also since having a baby. I don't really know what time is anymore, but I knit it last year. It's in Kelborn Woolen Scout in Charcoal Heather, and a strand of a lace weight alpaca silk. It's either a Valley Yarns cone or it's Jaeger spun. I'm not recollecting exactly what yarn it is. This is traditionally held with mohair. I didn't want to hold it with mohair. I was about to have a baby, and I wanted to knit it in something that I could hold the baby and not feel like I was getting mohair all over him. So I used this alpaca silk. You probably can't really tell. Maybe if I can try to squish closer. Oh wow, that really clarified things. So this is the Ingrid Sweater. As you can see, I'm sure you've seen it before, there's all these details. And the alpaca silk is in a lighter gray than the charcoal heather, and therefore it leaves this little marling effect. I love this. I knit it with a double folded neckband instead of the funnel neck because I wanted it to serve me over more than just the winter months, which is when I typically wear a funnel neck. I wear this all the time. It is just oversized enough. It feels like a sweatshirt. I feel like I can dress it up, dress it down. I wear it with sweatpants. I wear it with jeans. I don't think I've worn it with a skirt or dress. I'm not a big skirt or dress person, but I could, I'm sure, if I had like the right belt. Yeah, I just really, really love the sweater. It's perfectly oversized. I had just knit the Marseille sweater before I knit this one, and that one I knit in a small, and I knew that I wanted something more oversized. So I went for a medium, and it was worth it. So this is what I'm wearing. And I guess we can get started with the things that I have finished so far in January. I think that I'll have one more January finished object before the month ends, but it is, the middle of the month right now, so I'm just gonna go with what I have so far. So the first knitted object that I finished was a Sophie shawl. This I knit up with leftovers. I last year made my mom a slipover, the weekend slipover by Petiteknit. I riffed on it a little bit. I'd made that one before, and I used Barocco Ultra Alpaca in the color Eiderdown, and I held it with a white mohair. I had used all the white mohair, but I still had 2 balls of the alpaca. So I used the Ultra Alpaca and I held it with some stash mohair that I had. It's Valley Yarn Southampton in the colorway Driftwood. So the color here, it reminds me of an oatmeal cookie. This has not been blocked yet. It is massive. I basically just decided to knit it to the halfway point, and then to the middle was the first skein, and then I decreased from when I finished the first skein. I finished the first skein when I was at exactly 60 stitches. It really served my soul. I felt good about that, and then I started decreasing. The issue that I had is that the balls of yarn, I didn't weigh them before, they were not equal. So my cast on edge is as it should be. And I learned too late that I was running way low on yarn. So instead of ripping back, I just rapidly decreased, and this is how this end looks. They're different. I can't say that it bothers me all that much. It's a scarf, it's made from leftovers. It worked up really fast because of the gauge. I have the pattern for the Sophie scarf, which is the smaller version, and I just did the increases and decreases at a slightly quicker rate. But I used, I want to say I used size 8 US needles for this, and I didn't care about gauge at all. I've never gauge swatched for it. I never have checked my gauge. It's just a scarf. So yeah, I usually wear it. It's been very cold here in New England. And I have a green jacket that I wear. So I just tie it up like so. And it is very cozy. We've also been keeping the heat down in the house a little bit because energy prices are insane. So I wear it in the house, and it keeps me nice and cozy. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. It's pretty standard. You've seen it before, I'm sure. And yeah, I really enjoy it. The next pattern that I have made is another Petiteknit pattern. This is the weekend hat. For a second I wanted to say hipster hat, but it's her newer hat pattern. It is a unwoven end, triple brim with double knitting to encourage a fold. I knit this up. I'll try it on for you. Let's see if we can get the increases in there. Okay, that's new for me. I knitted this. This was a trial and error project for me because since I've been knitting for a couple years now consistently, I've felt like I can riff on things a little bit more. I'm also a very tight knitter, so whenever I knit Petiteknit patterns, I go up 2 needle sizes in US needle sizes at a minimum. This is knitted up in Blue Sky Fibers Woolstock Light in the colorway Cast Iron. And when I first knit this up, I used larger needles than I went up 2 needle sizes, and the gauge was just humongous. So instead of altering it in any way, I decided to add in a strand of mohair. I had a bunch of balls of, I'm trying to remember, I always use either Barocco or Southampton, which is Valley Yarns mohair. So I think that this one is Barocco, and it's in the navy blue color, which is why you get it, although it's predominantly gray, in some lights you get kind of a bluish tinge. I bought this yarn at a local yarn store in Vermont, which is where I'm from, and I bought it with the goal of making colorwork socks. I wanted, for some reason, a colorwork sock that did not have nylon in it, a yarn for colorwork socks rather, and it was my first pair of socks and my first colorwork, and for some reason I thought that was a good idea. But ultimately I decided that I wanted nylon in my sock yarn, just for longevity's sake. So rather than, I don't know, trying it out, I decided to just save the yarn for something else, and I opted to make this hat. I had bought 2 skeins. They come in 50 grams, and it's a fingering weight, so it's around 200 yards, I would say. I actually have a skein, I believe, somewhere around here that I can maybe confirm. Aha! Blue Sky Fibers, Woolstock Light Fingering in the color cast iron is 218 yards per 50 grams. It's 100% fine Highland wool. I find it to be very soft. It almost has like an alpaca feel, to be honest. It's a little bit thick and thin, although it's not like too inconsistent, and it has a little heathering. So I bought 2 skeins, and I made it until just about the decreases, and I needed more yarn, so I bought some more. I bought it for $10 a skein, which felt not so bad. I bought 2 more skeins. I held this double, by the way, so I held this double plus the fingering, or plus the mohair, and I have probably half of a skein left plus a full skein. I bought 2 extra because one of my works in progress, I knew I could use this in. So this is a leftover, this is the finished object. I think next time I make it, I'm gonna go up in a hat size. I know that Knits, Amy from Knits reported this as well, but she knit the size based on her head circumference, and it is just a little tight and it leaves ribbing marks. I have had the same experience. It is tighter than I would like, and I also like a little more space in the top of the crown. So next time, if I were to knit this again, I would add a couple more, maybe 10 more centimeters before I start doing the decreases. Maybe that's a lot, maybe it'd be like 8, just to get that extra volume. It's not something that I would want to rip back and do over. I like the finished project. I'm trying not to sneeze. Okay, excuse me. I like the finished object. However, typically I like a little bit more space in the crown of my hats. Again, I'll try it on. It does fit. It does have a little space. I'm hoping that as I wear it, it loosens up, though that has not been Amy from Knits experience, but I am wearing it quite a bit and I do like it a lot. I have enough left over. I know I said I was going to make, I was going to add it to another thing that I'm working on, but I definitely have enough to make my son a hat. So I am considering making one for him. I have a couple more finished objects from last year that I thought I could show. My most recent baby knit is a Moby Slipover. I made it in the size 1-2. This is in Cascade 220 fingering. I'm not sure the colorway, and it's in the rest of the white mohair from my mom's Slipover. I really enjoyed this project. I had to start and stop it a couple times. I ended up starting it with just the fingering weight, and it was just too loose of a gauge, so I ended up, and it couldn't fit over his head. So I knit until I joined in the body, and then I tried it on him, and I could not get the neckline over his head. So I ripped it out. I actually didn't even rip it out because it was a pain to rip out. So I just cut it, and I knew I had enough yarn, and I left it. I'm sure it's around here somewhere. And instead of doing too much in terms of the needle size, I decided to add in a mohair. So I added in a mohair, and I'm trying to think of the modification that I did to make the head. You know what I did? The actual pattern calls for a double folded neckline, and I just did a normal 1 layer. The neckline and the armholes and the ribbing at the bottom do not have mohair, but the body does. Putting this on him, this was his Christmas outfit. Putting it on him is not easy. I don't know if the mohair is itchy or what, but he fights it and fights it and fights it. But once it's on, he's good. It's just that he is shrieking up there. He's just playing away. We're not gonna get our first nap. Anyway, he's a kiddo who runs really hot, and I've knit him a couple sweaters that he just likes when it's really cold, but he does run really hot in them. So I opted for a Slipover. It felt like a perfect little Christmas outfit, and he's been wearing it since then. So that is my most recent baby knit. I did mess up the final cable. It went the wrong way. This is my first cable project, and I just did it the wrong way. You can notice it when I mention it, but I don't know if you really notice it if I don't mention it. So I'm one of those people who is like, done is better than perfect, and I did not want to rip back to before that cable. So I just kept going, and I don't think it's too terrible. So that is that. And I did want to share my Colorworks socks that I had mentioned earlier. This is Stone Knits pattern, and it's called Blooming Lavender. And what I used for this was Juniper Moon Farms Harriet Fine in the color, I'm not sure, it's like the dark gray color. I'm sorry, I should have better prepared for this. So that was the main part of this. It's an alpaca with nylon. And for the pink is Sandnes Garn, I think it's alpaca wool. It's a fingering weight, and it's leftovers from a baby hat that I made for a friend. And the green is Malabrigo sock in the colorway Jasmine, which I used last year for a camisole. I obviously had tensioning issues. This is my first color work that I've ever done, and my first sock that I've ever finished. So I think this is the first one. I attempted to catch my floats, especially here where there is quite a few stitches between, and it made the sock really hard to get over my foot. So one sock is hard to get over my foot, the other sock is not. The other sock is easy enough. The other thing about it is my row gauge was definitely shorter than hers. So the leg portion of the sock is shorter than I would like. And in the future, if I were to knit this pattern again or another pattern from her, I would add a couple more centimeters in just plain stockinette before attempting the heel flap and gusset. But as a whole, this was a really awesome project. I am really excited by these socks, and that brings me to, well, I guess it doesn't really bring me to, but one of my acquisitions is some more of this yarn for some more colorwork socks. My work in progress that I am chugging away at is a Stockholm sweater by Petiteknit. I know this is Petiteknit heavy. I just really like her patterns. They suit my style, my lifestyle, and I like the way that they're written. So this is my Stockholm sweater. I riffed on it quite a bit. I'm using Juniper Moon Farms Harriet in the colorway Talc. I bought the yarn originally for an Elizabeth blouse, and I knew that I wouldn't have enough yardage. I bought 3 skeins. So for some reason, I thought I would have enough for this sweater, and I don't. So I had to end up buying 2 additional skeins, of which I'm going to use basically all of them. So this is her. I love her. I do not have a sweater this color in my wardrobe at all, ready to wear or handmade. I think it's going to be very versatile. I love the double folded collar. So when I knit this, when I started it, I knit the body until there should be a fairly obvious line because I blocked it. This is where I finished, and then I put on the sleeves. The sleeves I knit, I had more stitches at the armhole than was called for. So I decided to do this thing in hindsight that was silly, which was I decreased it as in the pattern to about here, and then I increased the decrease rate by like double. So let's say it was every 10 rows you decrease, and then I was doing every 5 rows, which really tapered the sleeve in like a really odd way. So it was big here and then super small here, and it just wasn't it. And I knew it wasn't it, but I decided instead to just finish the other one, get more yarn, put on the collar, finish the body, see how it's fitting, and then decide about the sleeves. That's what I did. Before I had put on the collar, the neckline looked humongous, so I knew that adding the collar was going to alter the sleeves quite a bit. And it did. My sleeves ended up being about this length, whereas I think I would knit them, I really like a long sleeve, but I think I'd knit them to about here. That wasn't gonna go, and I hated the decrease rate, so I finished the body. I opted for a split hem. The front has about 8 centimeters of ribbing, and the back has 10. And my baby is screeching out there, so I'm a little bit distracted. He's just playing, he's not crying, he's not upset, but this is going to have to wrap up pretty soon. So I ripped out the sleeve, and I just did the regular decrease rate, and it ended up being quite a bit longer than, so the other one before I had ripped it out had finished before the ribbing had started on this one. I tried it on last night, it was exactly what I wanted. I'm a little apprehensive about the texture here. That is because this is the yarn that I had ripped out and it had been blocked. I'm really hoping that this straightens up with blocking. I'm a little apprehensive that I'm gonna have to rip it out again, block the yarn to get rid of all the kinks, as you can see. But I really want to finish it, so I'm just gonna hope that it'll block out. Last night I ripped out this sleeve and I just started redoing it. I have a feeling that this will be done this weekend, and I'm so excited to wear it. I'm so excited to see how it blocks, because there is some inconsistencies in terms of the line here and just overall just some inconsistencies. So I'm hoping that it works out to be just fine. Another work in progress that I have going on is, sorry if this is crinkly, a long-term work in progress. It is the Sweet Shop blanket by Laura Penrose. I literally paused this mid-row. I haven't worked on this in quite a while, but this is what I have so far. I am using scrap yarns. I'm using yarns that have been gifted to me, and I am using, for my main color, I'm using this Jaeger spun 100% wool. It's just called Cone. I'm holding it double. It's a pretty fine fingering weight. And it's in this kind of, I think it's called Smoke. Yeah. It's not super soft, but it's soft enough. And it's a really fun way to use my leftovers. I'm sure I'll talk more about this, but I'm feeling a little short on time. So that is that. I have here all my scraps that are DK and fingering weight that I plan on using. This is the one that I used. These are both the ones that I used for the Colorwork socks. And also the gray from the Colorwork socks is in the blanket as well. Yeah, so that is that. In terms of acquisitions, this is the Harriet Fine that I purchased for more Colorwork socks. This is the colorway Lobelia. This is the colorway, some sort of white color. I'm not exactly sure what it's called at the moment. I was planning on doing a Christmas Eve sock, every time I did it, I couldn't even get it over my foot. So I ripped it out and I'm taking a break, and I'm planning on doing a colorwork sock with this. However, I just saw the Celine sweater from, I'm not gonna remember, I'll have to put it in the description. Uses a fingering weight and 2 strands of mohair, and I think this would look really, really nice as a colorwork sweater. I would need to get 2 more balls of this. This I would have enough of. And I would need to find a corresponding mohair for this, and I have one in stash for this. So it wouldn't be too hard to do. So that is on the back burner for now. The next project I plan on casting on is an Elizabeth blouse, and it is going to be in Barocco Ultra Alpaca Light, I believe it's called. It's a 50% alpaca, 50% wool, and it's in the colorway Moon Shadow. Has a very slight halo. It's beautiful. I swatched it for the Colette sweater by Sari Nordland. And while I think it looks beautiful, it did not meet gauge. It's about 5 stitches too tight. And when I purchased the Sari Nordland pattern, I knew I wanted a bright, fun, beautiful colorwork or cabled sweater, and not necessarily a gray one. So the gray is, I checked the gauge of just this. So I know it's not the most accurate, but it is almost spot on for the Elizabeth blouse. So that is what I'm using for that, and that is going to be my next cast on, even though I have a niece or nephew being born very soon, and I want to knit a sweater for them. So I got Ultra Wool Fine by Barocco. It's a superwash. This is the color Stonewashed, and this one is Cream. I am thinking about either doing a Friday sweater baby, which I did for my own son, in probably this is the dominant and this is the stripe, or I'm gonna hold it double and do a cardigan, either a free cardigan pattern or a Petiteknit one, because I love her patterns. So I do need to get started on that. That's kind of my deadline important knit to get done. So that's that. The one other thing I would love to show just briefly is my project bag. Has a pocket here, has a pocket on the inside. This is a gorgeous gift from a dear friend of mine. It's from a company in Maine called Tempered East. The maker marbles the fabric on her own, like by hand, and then makes these gorgeous project bags. I think it's the perfect size for my Elizabeth blouse, and that is what is going to go in here. So thank you to my dear friend. And that is all I have for today. I have to go check on my baby and make sure that, I don't know, maybe we'll just leave and do something different, give up on this nap. We'll see. I hope to see you again next time. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day.